Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Deal with D and J. I am your co-host, DJ McCaffrey, joined alongside here, Jacob Prail. Jacob, how's it hanging?
Hanging in there, grinding away at the NFL Combine tape right now. It's Combine weekend. So
Mm-hmm.
this is it's a tough time. It's a lot of tape to go through as much as I can at least that I can find and see how these guys perform and make my own decisions and see where guys end up stacking up. So it's one of my favorite weekends of the year, Thursday through Sunday. So I'm really excited for Saturday's portion where the when the QBs go, but um yeah, just grinding away at the tape, prepping for March Madness, looking at all those metrics for when we
Yep.
do our, round of 64 show when the bracket gets dropped.
Yes, sir.
So, I'm pumped about that and then just slowly slipping in some baseball. Not a ton yet. I'm not there yet, but slowly slipping it in there.
Baseball will make its way around. It's got that lovely charm about it that it just smooth talks its way in whenever it really wants. So baseball will be around here very soon. I'm very excited about that too. The combine, like you said, it's combine week, going through a ton of tape. Um, but even to the same level as that right now is just NFL talk in general, right? A lot of trade talks, a lot of free agency talk, free agency opens. We just talked about in about two-ish weeks now. Um, so what who are some names right now that are in some big trade talks? Talk to me a little about the names that you're seeing. I know my biggest right now is Miles Garrett. But talk to me about some other ones that are up
I
there.
think I think the most surprising one so far is Matthew Stafford. He's been linked to the Raiders right now the most,
Okay.
which makes a little bit of sense, but not like a whole ton either for either side. Um, I'm surprised that it's in this facet with them that the Rams want to move off of how it's moving with Stafford. I think it's perplexing because you just made the playoffs. I mean, he's your best, easily one of your best players on your team, as well as he's been your kind of your franchise guy, won you the Super Bowl, takes you to the playoffs, and he just like he's the reason why he keeps your teams in it sometimes. Um, but if you're the Rams too, you don't have a clear plan at quarterback right now, right?
Right.
And you're already looking to get rid of Cooper Cup,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're already looking to move on from some other guys as well who are a little bit older as well. Maybe I think they're parting ways with some O linemen who are a little bit past their prime now. Um so I it makes a little bit of sense, but like this is a weak quarterback class. Like what are you going to get in return for Stafford? You're going to give up being a playoff team for what? Right? Unless that 6th round pick is coming and you're that confident in Shador, like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense on my side of things of why you would want to trade Stafford to the at least somebody like the Raiders doesn't make any sense. Like some of these names they get thrown out there, it's like the Raiders don't make any sense for them to trade because
Right.
like they have no pieces. It wasn't like when the Lions traded Stafford to the Rams, right? And
Right.
got Jared Goff. Like Goff, pretty much for a 1v1 swap is pretty much the same thing. You get a younger version of what you hope will come. Um, so I'm a little bit surprised that Stafford's in the biggest trade talk, I think. I think people are maybe fishing, but it does on paper it makes no sense. At least the tied to the top name of the Raiders. Another name I've seen thrown out there is the Giants as well. But again,
Mm-hmm.
you need a like there's so many more issues than just the quarterback position in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the Jets be kind of linked to Stafford, and that's a team that I think can make an all-in move like that because they have the pieces in place. Like you
Right.
and I have raved about the Jets and what they've done in
Right.
the you know, in the draft and what they've done in free agency with Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall, right? They got another great DN who I'm blanking on his name from Iowa State that came out really good, and some other guys like that. So the Jets could be really interesting, but primarily I'm not quite sure why the Rams would want to trade Stafford. But at the
Right.
same point, the Rams also do have to make a decision here at quarterback fairly sooner rather than later because Stafford is maybe got 2 to 3 years more in him simply because of that elbow injury.
Yeah. Yeah. His age is getting up there, and he's been a solid, quarterback back-to-back years. He had down year in 2022, and that may have been an injury, based on how his
Yeah,
stats have looked since then. I mean, that's the
it was.
only year that stands out as something being wrong.
He had
So,
that elbow injury
mm,
that was
so
basically like he couldn't like throw the ball very far. Like it was
right.
plaguing him like for a good bit of time.
Yeah, and so he, he he's been a great quarterback for the Rams. I think he fits the system well. Um, it would be interesting to see where he decides to go because I think there's only a few programs that can kind of emulate like offenses, right? You just said the Jets. I think that's a wonderful spot. I don't even know what the Raiders offense looks like enough to tell, at least last year, they had Devontae Smith, right? And I know they have big boy from Georgia who's Brock Bowers over there.
You say Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith is on the Eagles.
I'm sorry. Adams.
He's on the Jets now.
Now he is. Now he is. I'm saying last year.
Yeah.
At least their offense had some sort of identity. Because is Josh Jacobs still over there?
Nope.
Nope. So Josh Jacobs is gone as
So
well. So that
so like
offensive identity isn't there. At least if
it
it
was
would be a plus for the Raiders, but what would the Raiders have to give up in order to accomplish what they want? And
the
I just don't know
Raiders
the answer to
the Ra-
that.
the Raiders are one of the worst constructed NFL teams currently.
Hmm.
Um, you have you have no real offense, right? You have no running back. You have really no wide receivers. Um, and you have Brock Bowers, and then it's like you try to survive the year with O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, and like that made no sense. The offensive line is terrible, right? You have Max Crosby. You have a couple good safety pieces, but like overall, top to bottom, that team is bad.
Hmm.
It is a very bad team.
Yep.
So I don't know why the Rams would even contemplate a trade. And if I'm Matthew Stafford, I'm going in being like, what are you doing? Like
Right.
I was already I spent a lot of bad years in Detroit. I'm not doing this again.
Right.
You know, you don't need to go do that again with Stafford. So, the Stafford piece is interesting to me. Again, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
I
And there's
mean,
not like a whole lot of trade talks getting going anywhere. Like the Myles Garrett piece has zero
Cleveland
movement on
doesn't
it.
Cleveland doesn't look like they want have any intention of getting rid of Miles Garrett. And I don't know that it makes sense to them for them to really.
Well,
It,
it's the classic baseball. Like, do you want to hold on to somebody and let him walk in free agency and get nothing, or trade him and get something out? Because like, if you trade Myles Garrett now, like they're getting at least a first rounder, maybe two for this guy.
no, I think they could get a haul for Miles Garrett. But the caveat to that is, and what I hope, and I grew up a Browns fan, but I'm hoping God, I hope Kevin Stefanski is talking to the GM and they get a quarterback that fits his system. And if the system of the quarterback that fits, right? I think that's Cleveland's biggest issue is they've never aligned a head coach to quarterback system. Sean Watson is not a Kevin Stefanski man, right? Um, but Stafford's sitting out there rather nice, right? You have people like Kirk Cousins, Kirk O'Chains over to Cleveland. He might be a little too expensive for them. But I'm just saying they can get him cheap. That fits a system very well. And there are some quarterbacks here and there um, that I think could align decent enough to make a push that might entice Miles Garrett to change. And I think that's what the big ball game is going to be: is can they hold on to Garrett long enough to convince him with whatever moves they make in free agency to stay. And I think that's the game of chess that they're playing. I think Miles Garrett wants it now, and that's all that we're going to see is Miles Garrett wants a trade, right? And people think, oh, he wants a trade. They're either going to give it to him or they're not. But I think it's a game of chess right now. And I think when it comes closer to um, the draft and after this kind of free agency opens to see who might sign, I think that's when they're going to start showing their cards a little bit more. Any thoughts on that?
I think Miles Garrett has played his last snap as a Brown. Um,
Mm,
I don't I think he holds out. If anything, I don't think he takes another snap for Cleveland. A guy like him and the talent that he can bring, he's gonna get his way. Um, whether you like it or not.
right,
Unfortunately, it's just the way the cookie's gonna crumble at the end of the day. Um, but again, the he can't do anything about it because the ball's in Cleveland's court. If
right,
Cleveland doesn't want to trade him until after the draft, which in my estimation is them trying to see if they can get Abdul Carter,
mm,
then that like if they're able to get Abdul Carter, I think it makes trading Miles Garrett a lot easier.
right,
But, Tennessee doesn't look like they're going to take a quarterback. It looks like
right,
it's between Carter or Travis Hunter
right,
and you know, and the Browns could use both helps from Hunter as well. But I think if I'm Cleveland, you have to figure out what do you want to be because you don't really have an offensive identity, right? The most exciting time was when Jameis Winston was throwing the ball and you benched him for no apparent reason. You
mm,
benched him for who? Dorian Finney, whatever, DTR. Like it made no sense,
mm,
right? The the Browns just like if I'm Garrett, I'm not going back in the facility. I'm not touching a single thing. It's trade me or nothing. And like find me. He's made plenty of money. So if I'm Miles Garrett, I'm gonna wait and see. And what teams could benefit from from a guy like Miles Garrett. I mean, you're looking at the Bills can easily benefit from a Miles Garrett. I mean, do the Eagles go crazy, which we know they can? And
right,
do they go get Miles Garrett? And now it's like, good luck. You thought stopping Jalen Carter and Josh Sweat was hard. Now you got to stop Jalen Carter, potentially Josh Sweat, and Miles Garrett.
right.
Wish you luck. I wish you luck. Like, do they get aggressive there? Like, you know, I've seen the Cowboys, but the Cowboys have too many needs to give up that much capital
They'd
versus the
also have to
Bills.
pay too.
Yeah, I think the Bills can give up that much capital and be okay. Um, just because they've done a
Mhm.
great job of hitting on their draft picks and on later round guys. Like
Right,
Christian Benford comes to mind out of Villanova. He was a 6th round guy and he's a starting corner for them that gives them really important minutes in games. So the Bills immediately come to mind for me. Um, you know, maybe a team like I don't know. I've seen Detroit be in the mix, like as a light floater,
yeah,
right? Just because you still have Aiden Hutchinson on that rookie contract for I
yeah,
think another year, right? Or two, another year. Another year. Um, with the player option and You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. My immediate perfect fit is the Bills. The Bills make too much sense. The Eagles make too much sense. Um,
Yeah. Because the Eagles at least to have some future picks that they can kind of throw away, right?
mhm.
If you wanted to maintain what they have, because they've done a superior job drafting, right? So a lot of these people, like you said, rookie contracts going through them. So um
Where do since we're just like let's talk a little free agency stuff here.
yeah.
Like the biggest free agent name, surprisingly, this free agent cycle is Sam Darnold. Who would have
Mm,
thought, right? I know everyone's gonna say it's T. Higgins, but T. Higgins, like, if I'm the Bengals, I'm stupid if I don't re-sign him.
right,
Versus the Vikings, they knew what they had with Darnold was going to be a 1 year run.
right.
So now, obviously, Darnold lost a lot of money in the last 2 weeks of the year with those two bad losses. But also, like, he also got himself another job. Like he's back in the mix now, like in these jobs and doing what he's able to. So like, I don't know. Who do you see as a great fit for Darnold if they're not going to draft a quarterback in the draft?
A fit for Darnold or Darnold to fit the team, I think is kind of where you're going here because Darnold kind of one hit wonder right now, right? This was Darnold's coming out season. Um, as somebody who can um, bring a team to the next level, right? He kind of folded in the playoffs. If it's, his fault or not, I'll let everybody else decide. But um, I think that this is a scenario that we had. Um, I think this is a scenario that we have almost like Daniel Jones a couple years ago, right? Where now you've got this quarterback who had a good season, a great season in comparison to what he's had in the past, and now you're in free agency time, and who is going to be this team that steps up and wants to pay the man? I don't think he's worth $40 million, right? But what's a team that's kind of in that weird spot, right? An immediate team that comes to me would be the Raiders. Raiders speak kind of loud to me. Team that doesn't really have an identity to them at the moment. You got a quarterback going to Vegas. Sam Darnold can made a lot out of what we thought was not going to be a very good Vikings team this year, right? We didn't think the Vikings were going to be much of anything, especially with how competitive. We thought they were going to be a third place team, right? Is that where you had them to begin the season as well?
Yeah, I had him finishing behind the Packers and Lions,
Yeah,
and the fact that we were 14-3 is like,
it's incredible. It's
yeah.
so I can see him going back to Minnesota. I can. Um, I just don't think he's going to get the contract that he wants, and that's what it's ultimately going to come down to is who's willing to pay him the most money. 40 million's not a deal that I think he should be willing to
Yeah.
sign.
I think
But
for
like,
me, just
yeah, go ahead.
just
Sorry.
just for the plot of it, like Sam Darnold back to the Jets would just be so good. It'd be
Yeah,
so good. Like the failed prince returns home. Not even the exiled prince returns home. You know, he's more matured. He's been in two really good offensive systems with, Shanahan and now Kevin O'Connell um, as well. And the way, like, I hear Kevin O'Connell in press conferences, it sounds like the Vikings moved on.
really.
Like, yeah, like he's very happy about having Darnold. He was super grateful, but it sounds like they're like we cannot. The plan is JJ McCarthy, which I think is that's the way it has to be. right?
Please elaborate. Why does it have to be like that?
Why? Because I know you're not the biggest JJ McCarthy fan. All right.
First round was crazy, crazy work.
Listen, dude. I think he's gonna thrive in the Kevin O'Connell system because Kevin O'Connell system is not gonna ask JJ McCarthy to go win you games when you're throwing to Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson.
Right.
And guess what? We're probably gonna take a running back in this draft. And who knows? He could be having Henderson, he could have Judkins, he could have Omari and Hampton in the
Genty,
backfield. Like Genty could slip to us. I don't think Genty gets past the Broncos though, but like think about it like that. It's like JJ's really set up for success. The defense is going to be quite good again with Brian Flores running it. And the question
right,
I think then becomes like, can JJ's health, how's the knee going to hang up? Right?
right.
But you don't know if you don't try. So like I'm interested to see. I think it's one of those things where we have like you drafted him at the value you did, and like you can't really like give up on that because while Darnold was good, who again, who doesn't say Darnold slips back into the Darnold of old and
But
we're
that's,
stuck, but that's
I think
also another risk, right?
I was gonna
So
say it's a
like
risk of that you don't have him. If you can sign him for cheap, right?
the
Not
problem the
nothing.
the problem
You
is you can't franchise tag Darnold because you got to give him the market value. And the market value right now is like is about 40 million
right,
for
but
a
it's
one
40
for a one
million
year
for 1 year,
for a 1 year tryout versus you could spend that full 40 million on potentially two linemen, maybe three, maybe bolster the secondary. Like the thing is on the list of people the Vikings have to sign back, Darnold is not the biggest priority.
right?
Like I think the biggest priority is Byron Murphy. The
Mm,
we need to re-sign him. I think we're gonna franchise tag him. Like we're like he's coming back, right?
yeah.
So that's how you have to think of it. Is like in terms of like if I'm gonna spend the franchise tag, Darnold's not the top priority if I'm the Minnesota Vikings.
No, and that could be really fair. It is risk reward because again, now you know Sam Darnold, you know what he can do. You don't know what JJ McCarthy can do. I haven't been out on the field yet. I haven't played live games. So where's that balance? And I think that's an interesting way to go about it. I want to go over another quarterback that's out here in free agency as well. Justin Fields, another big name. I heard that both him and Russell Wilson are open to returning back to Pittsburgh. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think, Justin Fields should take the chance to move on? Do you think Pittsburgh, if they re-sign Wilson, that he's going to be their guy and Fields sits the whole time? Or give me a little insight of what you think about that.
I think Justin Fields ends up as a Raider out of everybody.
Mm,
Just because you can get him for cheap, it gives you room to. And the thing is, like the Raiders, this is why I was so perplexed about Stafford. Like, you don't have a good offensive line. So, like, you're going to need a mobile quarterback. So, Justin Fields is going to help fix that and alleviate some of that pressure.
right,
If some mock drafts I've seen and some other things I've read, you know, the Steelers look like they're going to retain one of those quarterbacks. I think they're leaning towards Russ just because, like, while Fields was good, Russ was better. Simply just because Russ can throw the ball. Now, the Steelers, you want to talk about a bad roster? That's a really bad roster.
right,
The, right? Defensively, it's a good roster, but on the offensive side of the ball, it's bad. You have Fryermuth, who's okay. Um, you have Pickens, who's really good, but you also have to deal with whether or not he's gonna punch somebody every other play,
right.
right? And then who's wide receiver too? You got Calvin Austin the third. right? Are you going to let Najee Harris walk and let Jalen Warren take the reins, or do you get a running back in this draft?
Right.
I've seen Jackson Dart linked to them as well. Um,
Wow.
you know, I just don't think we have enough questions answered yet. But I do think they let Fields walk. I think Fields ends up in Las Vegas. I might have said Oakland earlier, but I think he ends up in Las Vegas. And I still think Fields has the talent. And I think
Yeah.
going to a guy like Pete Carroll is
I
going to
forgot.
really, really help him.
I
Now,
forgot
a
he was
lot
over
of
there.
people think Russ and Pete are going to reunite. I don't think so. I
Mm,
think there's a reason why you let, I think they're not joining back again. So I do think Fields ends up in Vegas. And I think he'll be a Raider. I think he'll sign like a 2-year deal with a player option for a third or an opt out after one.
mm.
Um, because here's the thing. If I'm Vegas, it looks like on paper right now, Fields is going to be your bridge quarterback. You know,
Oh.
he's going to be your bridge quarterback to whoever you draft at 6 potentially.
Mm.
And let's say you don't get Shador or Cam Ward, you know, you don't want to draft Jackson Dart at 6, then you just take the best available. And at that point, you're probably getting a guy like Will Johnson, Mason Graham. Heck, you can go on the offensive line side of the ball, and Will Campbell could slip to you. Like who knows what happens there, right?
Right.
So I think Fields ends up in Vegas just because it gives you options if you don't get Shador or Cam Ward.
That's a that's a pretty great insight. And so you talked a lot about the draft there, Jacob, and I think it is time that we introduce some of our draft opinions here. You want to talk about who you think is at the top of your list, top 10, top 15-ish?
Yeah,
Um,
let's. I think easily, you know, because in between me and DJ, I am the draft guy. I'm the guy that will live, breathe, and eat the combine. I'm listening to Todd McShay talk. I'm listening to Ryan Russillo. I'm reading McShay. I'm reading Jeremiah. I'm reading, Rich Eisen and listening to some of that. And DJ's a guy where when we watch clips, DJ's like that he's got movement. He's got it. He's got burst, you
mhm.
know. But DJ also you like to just kind of have quick hitters versus I'm grinding
You
the
like the
tape a little.
depth. Yeah.
I like to grind the tape a little bit. Um, I think Abdul Carter. I think we can both agree. I think Abdul Carter is easily. Um, he's the best defensive prospect since Micah Parsons. Um, I think he could be as good as Parsons. I think he could be TJ Watt level good. I think he makes your defense a whole lot better. Um, I think his perfect fit is the Browns. Um, in terms
Yeah.
of like a team fit, but I do think he'll go to Tennessee as the one overall.
Right.
Um, and the number 2 guy I have in the draft, surprisingly, isn't Travis Hunter. Um, for me, I'm in complete awe with Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan.
Yep.
Just the way he can get guys off the ball, the way he can get to the ball, be a run stopper, can get to the quarterback, disrupt the run, make things hard for the quarterback and make things hard for the running back to find. He takes guys his lunch money. He's so safe. He's so clean. He's so like just the way you watch him just makes you be like this. You can't miss.
Right.
Like I'm not gonna say he's in a comic and Sue like, but like he's close in the sense of that is as safe as a defensive tackle as I've seen in a while. Um, and I think he's really great off the ball. Um, at 3, I do have Travis Hunter, and it's simply because the value is him as a two-way guy, right? I think that's why he's up that high is because he can play both sides of the ball. He's extremely healthy. Like he takes such good care of his body. He's a good corner and he's a good receiver, even though I think, man, it's tough to say which one he better than at
Wide
times.
receiver.
But for me, it's wide receiver right now. The way he can go a
Hmm.
high point a ball and come down with it. But also, if you're a team that, you need some help on both sides of the ball, like Travis Hunter's a rarity and you got to try it out, right? If I'm the Jags and he falls to five,
Yeah.
that's phenomenal. You get a wide receiver two, and then you get another corner that you desperately need.
Right.
I mean, it's a win. Um, at four, I'm also super high on Will Campbell, the offensive tackle out of LSU. Again, another super safe level pick because the talent is so good that injuries, have to like really derail him. I think the way he can get out and move and protect people, I think is impressive. I have him going to the Patriots just because you got to protect Drake May, and he's probably the best candidate to protect Drake May. I think he's just that good. Um, Kind of continuing, I have Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan. Tyler Warren's up there for me as well. He's my sixth top prospect. I mean, he's a Swiss Army knife of
Yeah.
guys. If you use him properly, he's gonna really turn around some things and make life a lot easier for people. At seven, I have Ashton Genty. I think he's one of the best running backs we've seen in a good bit. Not because of the talent. Like he's not a Saquon. He's not anything like that. But he's healthy. He can carry the workload. Right?
He
He
reminds me a
literally
lot of a Derrick Henry of
Derrick
types.
Henry. Yes, Derrick Henry, not prime Adrian Peterson, but like Adrian Peterson was carrying the rock like every snap for the
Yep.
Vikings. You know, like I think of a LeGarrette Blunt is a great one.
Yep.
LeGarrette Blunt has a couple Super Bowls. The longevity aspect of LeGarrette Blunt,
Hmm.
like, people are gonna be like, that's a terrible comp. It's like the guy played how many seasons and won X amount of Super Bowls and was super. Like the Patriots always wanted him,
Yep.
right? Like that. What's your best ability?
Yep.
Availability. So I think Genty's great. Um, Going off, Jalen Walker's another guy that I like. I'm a huge fan of Mike Green, but Mike Green I have at 11. Um, Colston Loveland is a guy that if he goes to the right team, he's going to give everybody fits. Everybody fits. I mean, this kid out of Michigan, man, like he if Tyler Warren wasn't in this draft, he'd be a top 15 pick, you know. I think if he goes to Denver, I think that's a match made in heaven for Sean Payton. Um I could also see him, going a little bit earlier. Dallas needs a tight end like they never needed before. But they also need a running back, but who knows what they do in free agency, right?
Yep.
Um And then, my top wide receiver, I think this should be no one's surprise. This is where I let my bias kind of come in a little bit, just a small bit. I think Luther Burden's the best. I think Luther Burton's the best wide receiver in the draft. People are going to talk about McMillan out of Arizona. When I watch the tape, he doesn't jump off to me. He seems slow. Not slow like he's like moving through molasses, but he's 6'4", right? If you're going to have him be your number one receiver, right? That's kind of a tough pill to ask. None of these receivers in this draft class is a number one guy. The only guy I think that could become a number one guy is Mbuka, um, just because he has the best route running ability. McMillan is kind of like AJ Brown like, but not AJ Brown. Just the height and the composition is kind of similar. But Luther Burden, you're looking at him and his ceiling to me could be CD Lamb. He could be
Wow.
Jamar Chase. Like if all goes right. Just because of the way he can do so many things with the ball not in his hand. You could put him in a jet sweep. You could send him in the slot. You could put him outside. He can go win 50-50 balls. He can get passes over the middle. Like he had a less than impressive year at Missouri his senior year, but he still does the same thing and he's great with yards after the catch. So if you're looking for a guy like Luther Burden, he could be your wide receiver too. And you could like if you're the Cowboys or even the Commanders is a great fit too. Because
Yeah.
Terry can go and get the long ball, and then you get Burton underneath. Like that's what you're looking at with Burton is a great number two. You're thinking what the Vikings have done with Jefferson and Addison, a Puka Nakua, and Cooper Cup. Like this is what your combo is going to be with Burton.
Hmm.
And I think Burton, his absolute ceiling is like a CD Lamb with the way he can move and everything else. But his floor, you know, he's a very, very safe pick. He's like Jordan Addison. He's a very
Mm.
safe pick. Even though I think Jordan Addison has a little bit more physical traits than him coming into that draft, but I think Luther Burton's a very good wide receiver. And I like him better than McMillan, um, just because the way typical wide receivers to go, a 6'4" guy is not normally who you go after.
Right.
So that was basically my top 10. Um, a synopsis of this draft class is um, incredible defensive lineman draft. Incredible.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
a real
if you just took Penn State, Georgia, and Michigan, I mean, the defensive talent that's coming out of there this year is so top notch. It's not even funny. And then you can have, even if you wanted to go a little bit further and you put Ohio State in there with the defense that they got coming into the draft, it's an extremely stacked class of defensive people, just in general, all over the board.
I think it's an incredible defensive draft as a whole. I think it's a really, really good tight end class. Um, I think it's a
It's
phenomenal running back class. I think it's not because of the talent, it's the level of depth and talent that you're getting out of this class. You
I,
know,
I, it's incredible. I like
wide receivers, wide
the
receivers
quarterback
are
class too.
wide receivers are weak. Quarterback class is so weak. Um,
What?
I do not like this quarterback class at all.
I think everyone's going to find themselves in a unique situation. This is going to be a low key, really good draft class. I think if we're looking at this draft class like we did when uh Sam Darnold and Zach Wilson and Josh Rosen were
You're
all
getting
in
your
it.
dr- you're getting your draft class mixed up.
Were they not all in the same draft class?
Zach Wilson got drafted by the Jets, and so
Right.
did Darnold.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking of Zach Wilson's class. Was he with Josh Rosen, or was that with Sam
Darnold,
Darnold?
Darnold,
Darnold. So I'm sorry. So I'm thinking of the one with Darnold, Rosen,
Baker,
Baker, and oh my
that 20
gosh, who
2017.
Josh Allen was in that class, I believe, as well. Um, I think
Oh no, it
that
was
class.
not 2017. It's 2018. 2018.
Yeah.
I mean
So
2018, like here's your top 10 picks is Baker Mayfield. Whoops, whoops, whoops. Baker Mayfield, Saquon Barkley, Darnold.
give me quarterbacks.
Hold on. I'm not going, dude, just listen to this top 10. Not even. I'm gonna give you the top.
Just give me the quarterbacks. Come on.
No, 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 no. I just want you
Fine,
to listen.
fine. I'll play your game.
Ready for this? Ready?
I've been waiting.
It's Baker, Saquon, Darnold, Denzel Ward, Bradley Chubb, Quentin Nelson, Josh Allen at 7,
Hmm.
Roquan Smith, Mike McGlinchey. Don't really know if we've seen him. Josh Rosen, we know what happened there. Mika Fitzpatrick, Vita Vea, Deron Payne, Marcus Davenport. You know, don't know what happened to Colton Miller. Trey Edmonds, Darwin James, Jair Alexander, Leighton Vander Esch was nasty until he had to retire due to injury. Frank Ragnow, Isaiah Wynn was solid. DJ Moore, look at him. Calvin Ridley, Rashad Penny, like Mike Hughes, Sony Mitchell, Lamar Jackson's even in this class. Like, there's a good chance. Like, we look at this draft class and it's one of the best that we've seen in terms of, you know, I think what was it, 2011 that had the insane draft class of like JJ Watt? Yeah.
Well, I'm not looking at it from like a whole draft standpoint. I'm looking at it from a strictly quarterback because
Oh my
I think
God,
it's
dude, this
extremely underrated.
dude, this
I
draft class is
think
low key nutty.
I think this draft class here, and I found the draft class that I'm looking for. It's the 2021 draft. I know I've mentioned Rosen and Darnold, but the 2021 class, I think this class lives up to what the 2021 was supposed to be, and it's not getting the same attention. So I like the quarterbacks in this draft. Cam Ward, Shador Sanders, I'm not all high hopes for. I'm not. Jackson Dart, I think if he gets put in a decent system, I mean, people are talking about him being quarterback one in this draft, right? Jalen Mill.
I love Jackson Dart. I
I
think
I'm iffy. I'm iffy when it comes down to it, when the game is on the line. I don't know if I can trust him. I think
I
he's a
don't
good
know.
quarterback. I think he's a good quarterback, but I mean, you gave him three chances against Florida, right? And granted, Florida was on its come up, but uh you gave him three shots against Florida, and he missed all three when it came down to it. Um,
I
you
I
know,
think I think we're going to talk about this quarterback class as a set of I'm going to try a set of unfortunate circumstances. Because how many teams need a quarterback in this draft class?
a
The
lot of them.
Giants? No. Not all, do not say all the teams in this draft class
I
need a
didn't say
quarterback.
all of them. I said a lot.
No.
Yes. What are you
No.
talking about? With the way that people are also looking at getting rid of their quarterbacks, you don't think that they need them? Oh, if they get rid of Stafford, they need a quarterback. Arizona needs a quarterback.
No, they have
The
Kyler. They
Browns,
signed Kyler.
they are going to look for
But
his
no,
replacement. They don't
no.
like nobody likes Kyler over them.
But then why would you sign him to a 4-year contract, DJ?
I don't know. It's
DJ,
not me.
you gotta put your GM cap on for a second.
They
Like,
signed they
look,
signed
like
fine,
the
fine, go.
I am gonna go. You gotta put it. Look. You see this hat? This is my GM hat. I'm giving this to you. I want you to put this on. Put it on. I need you to see you. Put it on. Put it on. Thank you. Like the Titans. Do they need a quarterback? Yes. Are they gonna take one? No. Why? Because they're not in love with the quarterback class. The Browns absolutely need a quarterback. What's your one downfall right now? Deshaun Watson's salary. The Giants absolutely need a quarterback. It's a no-brainer. You're going to piss off your franchise if you don't get a quarterback, right? You're looking at the Raiders. The Raiders 100% need a quarterback. But also, they are tied to Stafford and Fields. So like, what's going to happen there? Pittsburgh is the only other team I see. The Jets need a quarterback, but I see them fulfilling that in free agency. So like, and then Pittsburgh is the only other team in the later rounds that I see taking a quarterback. That's it. In the first round, you're looking at four teams that need a quarterback. Now, granted, every team's going to fill in their void. Like the Rams could take Tyler Show in the third round for all we know out of Louisville. But like in terms of filling your first round need, I will say for most of these teams, a quarterback is not one of them when the level of depth is better than most. I'm not going to say this is a 2022 draft class when it was Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett. I think they're better than that. But like Cam Ward doesn't excite me as much as people think. Like I think he's lazy.
Wow.
I think he's lazy with his feet.
Oh,
I think he can make some things happen. I think I think he's a risk taker. You know, if we're looking at Cam Ward's ceiling, like, he's a great starter. He could end up like a Tua, which is not bad, right? But I don't think very highly of him. I don't know if he, you know, spent a lot of time in college, man. You bounced at three different schools. You know, everybody loved what he did, but to me, I just felt like he was lazy with his footwork and just like not
You're
like
talking about Cam Ward that went to three different schools?
he did go to three different schools.
Where did he start if it wasn't Washington State?
He was like a Sunbelt school. I
Oh,
forget what school. I think it might have been like oh, University of the Incarnate Word was where
yeah,
he started.
Roger
So
that.
like I'm also like I'm not gonna I do think he's the best quarterback in the draft class, but I'm not in love with him. Um, I think Jackson Dart is easily quarterback number two. I think it's not even close. I think Shador is a problem. Um,
I
not
can see that.
I think leadership is a problem for him, but I think people are gonna like Shador though in the locker room. Um,
Hmm.
he's not incredibly mobile, so he's gonna be a pure pocket passer.
Shador?
Uh, yeah, Shador's not that mobile. But the last couple games for Colorado, I wasn't really liking the tape. He was forcing balls into really bad windows, even though he was one of the most accurate quarterbacks in college football. Like, I don't know, when I'm watching some stuff and I'm not falling in love with it versus like Jackson Dart has flashed some signs of he's really good with his feet. He's really good at getting out of the pocket as well. That he can throw the ball great, and Shador can do that as well because he had a terrible offensive line at Colorado. Um, to me, it's just something isn't clicking. I think Cam Ward's easily the best quarterback. I think the more I watch of this upcoming draft class, I think the more I'm gonna really appreciate what Cam Ward did at Miami. So maybe I have a little bit of like my bias goggles on in terms of like I wasn't a super big fan of like the Miami team as a
Hmm.
whole, right?
Okay.
Um, and that can be it too. I think Jalen Milroe is going to be a sneaky, sneaky pick. Just because everyone's looking for the next Lamar. And he's probably the closest thing to Lamar in this draft class. Not saying he is that prospect, but the way he can run, the way he can throw,
See,
his
but
his
I think you're
his issue
overlooking
is
somebody
his issue is
who's
he can't throw any balls underneath. He only has a deep ball.
well, somebody you're overlooking that can do that same thing is Dylan Gabriel. I think he's mad underrated in this class.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
He's number 8 in this draft class. Number 8.
A lot of
Um,
people are not, from what I've listened to, is they're not happy with the height. Not think he can do about that. They're a little bit worried about the processing, um, but not in the sense of like can he process plays quickly. It's you know, in the Oregon offense, everything's pretty much like to the rhythm. And
but he's played in
if
three
he's out
different
of rhythm,
systems. He's played in three different
I
systems.
know, I know. This is an old quarterback class. These are veterans, man. Like you got a ton of 4-year guys.
Right.
Shador, Cam
But
Ward,
but I
Jackson
think
Dart,
where
Jalen
you were
Milrow.
arguing with me earlier with like this being a QB class good or a QB draft, like a lot of teams will be looking for their replacement or who is now their bridge to the next quarterback. And I think these are the quarterbacks that are going to step up. Like the ones that I stated earlier, like Trey Lance, those were quarterbacks that were, had their quarterback they were going to replace right in front of them. And all of them failed, right? Including Justin
So do
Fields. He was
you?
put in a bad spot. Mac Jones, he failed. Trey Lance failed.
But
Trevor Lawrence is the only
New
one
England was
that's,
a bad spot too.
eh, but it happens,
Do
and
you
it's not
think?
everybody's fault.
Do you feel like this draft class would benefit in like a Jordan Love type of scenario?
So the problem with that one again becomes the age. Jordan Love scenario, you can't sit all of these quarterbacks for 3 years. This becomes a Michael Penix type of situation. You have, well, I'm not saying that they need to get rid of their starting quarterback after 9 months on the team, but you have your veteran quarterback play 1, 2 years max, and then you look for your way out. You look to trade him. You look where Matthew Stafford is. If I was LA, I would have drafted somebody 2 years ago if I had the class, if the quarterback class came to me and fell there. I think Dylan Gabriel, I think Will Howard, Jackson Dart shows really good signs.
I can see Will Howard falling late to a contender. I
Hmm.
see Seattle being a sneaky team in the mix because Geno Smith ain't the answer. He's getting old, and I think if you're gonna keep DK Metcalf and you're gonna keep Jackson Smith and Njigba, like you have to go get
Quarterback.
a young quarterback. I think that's where a guy like I think a Will Howard, I think a Jackson Dart would be great in Seattle.
Hmm.
Great in Seattle.
Yeah.
Um, and I want to go back to Shador and he did a great job with I questioned his leadership, but the more I recalled it, it was he did a great job with how he handled that offensive line stuff. But he also is the first guy to throw everybody under the bus.
Hmm.
I'm interested to see how that is. I'm interested to see the Dion effect.
And
Um,
he denied the throw at the combine. He's not doing a combine workout.
that's what I'm not.
And
That's
I think
what
that is a big L on his part. Like I get the risk of doing it, but especially when you have controversy, throwing in your own facility to your own players does not make you look better. It does not. I'm sorry. You don't want to run the 40. I'm not gonna like it, but I'm not gonna hold that to the same standard of not doing a whole entire workout for the NFL combine. I think that is that's trash from somebody, especially with his father there who competed at the combine and went through all those steps. And I think that's a bad take. I think it's really bad taste.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm trying to see who's throwing at the NFL Combine because I know he's not, but he's there. Hold on, who's throwing in the NFL Combine? Like he's there doing the interviews and all that.
But that's not
Um,
that's not enough for me, unfortunately.
no, I'm in the same boat. I'm in the same boat. I want to see him throw. Like
Hmm.
here's what I yeah, like. I am in the same boat. If you're the most accurate quarterback
Why wouldn't
of
you show
this
that
draft,
off?
why wouldn't you want to show off how accurate are, regardless of who your wide receivers are,
Hmm.
right?
I believe it.
Um, so I'm surprised by that. Here we go. NFL quarterbacks who aren't throwing. Shadur Sanders isn't throwing. Some other Ashton Genty's not participating in the combine, but like that's super smart on Ashton Genty's part. Like
I would say that too, because
Cam
I think
Ward
with
it Cam Ward is a 50-50 on if he's going to participate. I'm leaning towards he's not going to participate.
I think
Um,
if I think if Shador doesn't, I think Hamward 100% should.
But I think,
And it,
but I think, but I think a guy like Jackson Dart, Quinn Ewers are gonna really benefit from not having those two guys there because they're
mhm.
gonna be easily the best throwers of the football. Dylan Gabriel's gonna really benefit from this too, like you mentioned.
I think two others is going to be Kyle McCord and Will Howard have the most to gain, but also have the most to lose.
Agreed. Absolutely agree.
Will Howard is an incredibly accurate mid to short passer, incredibly good.
The deep ball is interesting. That's an
But if he
interesting one.
if he can show it off at this combine, no
Yeah.
pressure, just let it rip. No pressure, no nothing.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I think he gets the benefit, and Kyle McCord has kind of got that. Jameis Winston type of
Yeah, he does.
vibe to him. He throws a lot of good balls and did really well at Syracuse this year. Needs to show off the accuracy, and I think this is
Yeah.
the stage to do it, especially with a bunch of receivers that you're not familiar with. If you can make your reps count, I think that could go really big and give him a big shot up, both of them a big shot up um if they can make it count, make their reps count.
Yeah.
So
Well,
new system. Speaking of throwing, these transitions are making a lot of sense right now, Jacob. We're just rolling with it, rolling with the punches. Um, Throwing baseball, new system in spring training, the ABS system. The players get the ability to challenge two pitches a game. Um, I believe with failure, if they fail, they lose it, right? But if they get it back. I'm assuming, or
yes.
they just have two in general.
I
If
think
you're
it's
wrong, you lose it. If you're right, you maintain that challenge. So you
yes.
get two of them a game. Um, I think it's beyond due that they have something like this. I'm personally a I am personally a person that likes the human error element in these games, right? Baseball is a game of human error. It's a game of inches, right? And bringing too much technology to a game that's already pretty slow kind of, battles that a little bit. But with the MLB and their inconsistency in holding umpires accountable for their horrible, horrible, horrible ball and strike calling, this has been mad overdue. So I think the MLB's battle was you go and you fight the union, or you give the players something that they can do to reverse, this bad calling, plate calling. Um, Something that the ref or the umpires have to hone in on. This is where you're going to see umpires becoming more accurate, hold less grudges too. I think the petty umpire is going to go away in this system as well.
But it's like if 99% of the balls are outside the strike zone, that's a ball. You know, I think they need to have like some
Mm,
like how much of the baseball is in the strike zone. Because
mm.
even if it grazes it, to me, that's not enough. That's like if it just clips the corner, that's not a strike, DJ. If
It's
it's
called
not
painting the corners, buddy,
no, not if
and
it's not
that's
if 99% of the ball is not in the strike zone, that's a ball. So like I think you have to fix that portion. Other than that, I don't see it slowing the game down. I do think the umpires can be a little bit more petty depending on how it can happen. If, a guy says that was a strike when he called the ball and it was a strike, he could be like, well, now you only got one challenge left. So, like, whatever. Um, and the thing is, now most of these catchers know. Like, a lot of these catchers who are coming up through the minors have been already messing with this stuff.
right,
So, like, they have a really good idea of what's a ball and what's not a ball.
right,
What's a ball, what's a strike. Um, I think it's two for the entire game, not per player.
correct,
Uh, so like players also then have to be strategic before they challenge.
right.
You
And
know,
how are
how
you going to
confident,
allow,
how confident are you,
and what's that
right?
conversation going to look like between players before they
And
get out there
umpire and
too?
your managers. What's
Mm-hmm.
the strategy, right? You also they're kind of like timeouts. You also don't want to not use your timeouts, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you want to challenge them if you can. Um, in the grand scheme of it, I like it. I think it's interesting. I think it's cool. Um, they're definitely going to have some moments where we're going to have some games end on ABS, and that's going to make a lot of people mad.
Mm-hmm.
Like imagine a playoff game, 3-2 count, right? Not even 3-2 count, right? Ball gets pitched, looks like it's a ball, goes to review, and it's a strike by the skinniest hair of your chinny chin chin. Like depending on how that works out for whatever team, like there's gonna be a lot of people mad. I do agree. I think human error is a huge part of it. I think that's what like everybody wants stuff automated. And I'm not I for some things I do agree need to be automated. Like the NFL is now doing electronic lines for the first down markers. They should have had that 5 years ago. Like
Right.
soccer, it's VAR. Like it's the same thing. Basketball takes forever with the reviews
Hmm.
because they want to be perfect. And it's like, no, like live and die with your call. Like there's plenty of chances to make up for it. Your one call's not gonna like make or break the entire game, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
it does. Sometimes it does, but like, that's just sometimes the way the cookie crumbles.
Right.
If you have to rely on the refs to win you a game, that it means you didn't play well enough. That's what a coach will say.
Right.
Um, I think ABS is going to be good. And the thing is, the way they challenge it, it's very quick. I think it's like a 10-second thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's quick.
Yeah.
But
Um,
I think you're going to piss off a lot of people potentially if some games end on an ABS. It's going to be like, oh, that was boring.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
baseball's already not in a great spot in terms of it being an exciting sport.
Right. Um, I don't know. There were a couple of things there. I think the ending on the ABS system is going to be just kind of like challenging a play, right? It's going to have that opposite effect. But, you're a fan of your team, right? The excitement at that point is over, right? So is your excitement for not, you know, is kind of your weight. So there's a play at home, player gets called out, and you're at home, everyone's gonna go crazy, blah, 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 blah. The call afterwards, is gonna give you the agony of defeat, but like you've already gone through the emotion of like the most happy, right? But everything's reviewed at the end of the game now, anyways, doesn't matter what sport you watch. If there's a Hail Mary touchdown, play goes under review. If he's stretching out, it goes under review. Basketball, shots going off, buzzer beaters under review. Um, so I don't really think it hurts that much, especially with the ABS system. I don't agree with your 99%. How much of the football do you need over the pylon or to cross that line
It just has to
before it's a
break the
touchdown?
plane. Yeah.
Just has to break the plane. If you're in NASCAR to cross the finish line, how much of your car needs to the first touch? If
I know.
how much of the ball needs to be in the hoop before the buzzer goes off? None. It has to leave your hand. It doesn't matter if there's a
Yeah,
if
but
there's
in
a hit.
hockey, the whole puck has to cross the paint. And
I'm
in soccer, the whole soccer ball has to cross the white line.
Yeah, but you're talking about foreign sports. We're talking about the US of A,
Foreign.
baby.
Oh my God.
Come on, where was hockey born? Come on. I'm not
I'm
asking
not
you where hockey lives. I'm not asking you where hockey lives. Where was hockey born?
thinking like Russia or some crap. I don't
Yeah,
know.
not here. Where was soccer born? I could tell you it wasn't here. So you talked about different things, different things. We talk about America, baby. This is the US of A. um, what were the British's chances of beating the 13 original colonies? Probably pretty good. You didn't need 99%. The USA only needed 1% to get that victory, baby. um, but nonetheless, I don't think that'll be much of an issue. I think baseball players in general, I think if you're not swinging at a ball that's 1% on the line of a strike, I think you're doing something wrong offensively, right? I get a ball is a ball, but like growing up and playing baseball, if it's sitting around the plate and sitting around that perimeter, you can hit the ball. And if you're choosing to not swing versus, trying to take a hack at it, I think you're playing the game of baseball for the wrong reason. And there are circumstances, right? But again, if the circumstances rely on you taking a ball or getting a hit, I can almost guarantee you that getting a hit is probably the better thing to do. So
Yeah.
baseball is supposed to be offensive. It's supposed to try to get you to hit the ball. That's where all the action comes from, is the ball being in play. If you're taking something that's that close, a hitter should want to hit the ball. Goodness gracious. There is no better feeling in baseball than getting a hit. Good plays come and go, and they're more likely to happen than they are for you to get a hit in baseball. So even at the highest level. So I think the smidgen of the ball being on the line makes perfect sense. I think it's better for the game. And it gives them more wiggle room. It lets the pitchers be less perfect as well, because controlling a baseball within the margins that they have to is really freaking hard. So
Yeah.
I think it gives everybody a little bit more to work with. In my own opinion, my baseball experience as well. So, but I like it. It's a good rule. So, I think we're going to move into our last segment here, Jacob. You ready? It's that time. It's ranting. It's ranting minute and a half. I would say ranting hour, but it's ranting minute and a half. So, do you have something off the top of your head that you want to rant about?
Yeah, we need to bring back court storming. Um, oh my
Here's the
God.
deal, baby. Run it.
Here's the deal. Um, they need to, you know, bring back court storming. I'm sick and tired of this. Don't storm the court, we're gonna get fined. I'm over it. I'm over it. If you beat a top five opponent, like my case in point is Missouri, right? You beat Kansas, you storm the court, good on you, right? You needed that after last season you were the worst team in college basketball. Then you get number 4 Alabama comes to your place and you beat them 110 to 98. Just a boat raced them. And Dennis Gates goes, "Please don't storm the court. Please don't." No, storm the court. How often you were 0 and 18 in conference play last season,
Wow.
and you just beat Bama, the number 4 team in the country. Storm the court. I'm tired of this whole like no storming the court narrative. You need to storm the court after a big win. If you're like, just do it. It's a safety thing. It's college basketball. They storm the football fields, and that's a heck of a lot more dangerous than a basketball court. There's more people in a football stadium than a basketball arena.
That's true.
Heck, they're breaking field goal posts down. And the ADs are like, great job. Because all they care about is the win and the publicity. But it's just like Jay Billis has been on this freaking soapbox about how he's like court storming is bad, is dangerous, blah blah blah. It's part of the game. It's been part of the game for years. It's everyone's favorite moment is when they can storm the court. It's an iconic moment in every instance of the game. Bring back court storming. Stop being wimps. Get over it. And if you really don't want to get people storming the court, how about you win the game?
Would you wish to have a discussion, or you want to just leave it there?
Leave it there.
All right. So here's the deal from my side. Cautions are ruining NASCAR. They are. They're ruining completely, specifically on the last lap. I've been super into NASCAR the last 2 weeks. The Speed Week was last week. Three, I believe 3 of the 5 races last weekend ended on a yellow. And it's horrible. And it's horrible. I'm not saying a yellow should not be thrown, but there needs to be a line somewhere on the track that says if they are past this point or the wreck happens after this point, you let the leaders race back to the start finish line. I think it is ridiculous that if a wreck happens in turn 4 at Daytona, a 2.5 mile track, that you can't have the leaders race back to the checkered before you call the yellow. I think it's ridiculous. They have 2.25 miles to slow down, and you decide we're going to end it right there. And then when the yellow flag goes out, Jacob, whoever is the leader at the time that it goes yellow is the winner. That's it. There's no race back to the line. There's no nothing. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. And some tracks are going to be harder than others to do it. And I get that. That can be an exception to those rules. But on the bigger tracks, especially, and I think you can make a point for all of the tracks in general, right? If no cars can get through, right? That's a good reason to throw a yellow. It is. But the action of the sport, they try to make this sport so much more competitive, right? And more fun for the viewer to watch, but they're getting away from what makes the sport great, right? An emergency vehicle is not going to have trouble getting to a person because they have them all around the track. They have entrances and exits to get to wherever they need to get to in a matter of seconds, right? Like 10 seconds tops. And to think that letting the leaders not race back to the line is going to hinder or endanger more of the people that are in the wrecks, everything behind everybody is already slowed down. These people aren't, they're not a factor in this do or die situation that could be happening within these cells. But racing back to the line, I think, it's how the sport grew to be what it was at its peak. They let the racers race back to the line at the 500, and that was arguably the worst wreck of the last lap that we saw. You know, so this when to do it is stupid. They need to have a line on the concrete or on the asphalt that says if a wreck happens before this point, it becomes a danger to the vehicles and the emergency people. Just because, it happens, if it happens in turn one, that's a different story. If they can clear the track, that's one thing. But if it becomes a danger, you throw it. But that makes more sense, having the cars having to slow down in a shorter period of time. But I think the cautions, they're too trigger happy with the yellow. I think you should let the leaders race back to the line. Again, unless it becomes an immediate hazard to the people after they cross that start finish line. So they have brakes on the cars. They work. So I think you should be able to utilize them. So, well, Jacob, that was pretty good. So, any last remarks? Alrighty, buddy. Well, thank you all for listening. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all platforms. I have been DJ McCatherine. He has been Jacob Prano, and thank you for listening to The Deal with D and J.